Hi from the high, and thanks for stopping by. You're watching Kursada, a show where we focus on the experiences of Filipinos living abroad. And on this episode, we talk to AJ Ereño, author of a new Ilocano English children's book, Pakara, along with Norman Salas and Dean Domingo, who are other creative individuals who are involved in the making of this book. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Calvin. And before we get into this video, I want you to go ahead to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel as Calvin does. That will only help the YouTube algorithm help me find more viewers just like you. Again, I want to welcome you all to the chat and thank you for allowing me to get this group together to do a little bit of a deep dive on this particular topic. So we'll be discussing here a project that the entire group, including myself, has been working on over the past few months. And that is a bilingual book offering called Pakada, which is a children's book. First is Norman Salas. Norman is a high school English department head and literacy coach. He is the Filipino American Club advisor and one of the teachers behind Voice, poetry by the youth of Kalihi that earned a 2019 Media Advocacy and Migration Award from the Filipino Commission on Filipinos Overseas. Next, I'd like to introduce Dean Domingo. He's an instructor of Ilocano language and literature and the advisor to the Timpuyog organization, which is a social branch of the Ilocano language and literature program. In addition, he is an Ilocano language rater, among other such relevant and notable designations. Finally, we have Almin J. or AJ Ereño. He was born in Narvacan, Ilocos Sur, and moved to Honolulu at the young age of 12. He is a registered nurse who holds a master's degree in public health nursing as well as a bachelor's in Philippine language and literature with an Ilocano concentration from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Now, I'll give a little bit of a background for our viewers in Ilocano because it is written here on the back and I can practice my Ilocano skills as well.
Pakadaget pakasaritaan iti na ayam nga ubing, akanayon nga agsursura kadwana, dagiti kagayem na.
Sa anapulos nga agpakada, kininanang na, aging gana adda, madi anapasamak. AJ, let's start with you. I want to get to know exactly how you came up with the concept of Pakada because it is truly unique to have this kind of bilingual book that represents a language that not many people know. And it is one of many, many more Philippine languages in the country. So why did you tell or want to tell this particular story?
It's kind of almost like for the word pakada, it has always came up every time I went somewhere with my friends when I was younger. My grandma or my mom would always ask me like, "Oh, you should agpakada ka," meaning like, "Oh, you should always tell us where you're going, so that in case there's an emergency or in case something happens, so we know where you are." So that kind of entailed that part of what pakada meant to me as I was growing up in Ilocos. So one day I was driving, home, coming from the west side. It was like a long drive, and I just had I was thinking of that word pakada and what it really meant because it's been a while since I've heard it. So as I was driving, I was like, oh, pakada sounds like a really like that concept. It's kind of hard to define in English. Like there's not an actual like word that like perfectly encapsulates that word in Ilocano. So as the more I thought about the word pakada, the more like this story of a little boy, like what if that did happen? What if I didn't go to? What if I didn't pakada? What if I didn't say where I was going to my mom and my grandma? What would have happened? And so from that point on, this story came about where, yeah, like I explored what would or what could happen if the worst things happen, if you didn't do, if you never pakada or no hangkang nagpakada, what would have happened? So that's the concept that I was playing with, main concept.
So the creative process wasn't far-fetched. It was not something new. It's actually written from experiences of you living in the Philippines. So that's actually great. And I'm sure you have a lot more stories to tell from that aspect. Norman, I'm going to toss this question over to you because, you know, in order to have this book come to life, you definitely needed to have some sort of process releasing it too. So take us through the process, Norman. What was it like? And can you tell us how the group got involved?
Yeah, definitely. I think AJ came up with the idea maybe 2 years ago, or maybe more than that. I don't really remember, but I remember we met up at his garage and talked about it, read his manuscript, and that was 2 years ago, right? And we've always like he always talked about it, like publishing the book and blah blah blah. And then it just got put in the back burner, and I haven't experienced self-publishing a book because that's what a project that my students did, our students did last year. Oh, it feels so long. And then with the pandemic happening, I just felt that it was the right moment to reconvene because, we're all staying home. I mean, a lot of us are still working, but we needed something to make it worthwhile. So we gathered the group together again, and I pushed that we have to publish this by this year, otherwise it's not going to happen for another 2 years, right? So yeah, so basically reconvened, but along the way, before we really jump started the project 2 months ago or last month, there were smaller things that were happening. Like AJ wrote the Ilocano version of the story, then there was translation happening, and there was a lot of back and forth between the Ilocano version, English version, and then we brought up Jenilis, who eventually illustrated the entire book. So there's already been a lot of process. We even talked about, do we self-publish this book through Amazon or do we go through a publisher? And we eventually decided to self-publish the book so we could get it out there easier and faster. And then all those smaller steps that we've had in the last 2 years just made the last 2 months easier for us. And we've been meeting weekly since I don't remember when, but yeah, the entire process, like there was the manuscript, the sketches, the illustrations, the translations, and all the other shuns and book luncheon. The 28th.
Yeah, and that was a mission that was made to completion. That was not a good joke. But anyways, I want to know what also what everyone else was involved in, because I know you were sort of this project manager. Can you tell us or give us an idea of what the other people had been involved in?
Oh yeah, so that made it sound like I'm a micromanager, right? But anyway, so AJ, of
No.
course, he is the author of the book. It's his concept, it's his story. Jen Liz, who's not here tonight, but she's our illustrator. Dean helped with the translation and editing of the book, and then yourself, Calvin, you're the designer of the book. And I think there's a lot of other people involved along the way who helped us with translations and smaller other things, like our friends from the Ilocano program. So I guess, it was a community effort. And really the only thing that I did was like asking these people who have the skills and the talents to make this happen.
Right, right. And that's not to mention the experiences that AJ had already gained through the process of making this book and creating the ideas behind it. So I want to toss this over to you next, Dean. Can you expand on your involvement and what was the group dynamic in moving this project along?
All right. So, like what Norman stated, my role in this project was to help translate and edit the text. It was a long process, going back and forth, looking at the Ilocano translations as well as the English, making sure it translated well. Because we all know sometimes translating, we won't get the true meaning once you do back translations. As far as the group dynamics go, I thought that we worked pretty well, although our schedules were kind of hectic and like we're all busy with our own things. We still found some time to actually get this project almost completed. We all communicated well. We used Facebook Messenger, sometimes text to communicate. um, throughout the process.
Yeah, and speaking from the communication aspect, because of these recent happenings, uh, and of the recent months, because we were driven to complete the book, we were still very much separated, and the only way we were able to communicate is either through phone, text, messenger, or this Zoom meeting that we're having right now. So kudos to everyone for being able to, have that kind of communication line open to each and every one of us. And this group again includes not only just the four of us, but Jen as well, the illustrator. Jen is kind of the visual glue that holds this project together and adds another layer and dimension to the visual aspect of the story. If anyone can chime in over here, can you tell us what the process was like in creating the imagery and how you folks were able to come up and center on the end vision of these particular images that we see in the book?
Okay, well, actually want to start by mentioning how great and awesome Jen is being the illustrator for the book. I want to start by saying that we or I chose her to be the illustrator for the book because this is the first time I've seen her representation and illustration of the characters. Because that was the first thing we did was, okay, I want you to visualize these characters in the book and then put it, sketch them out. Once I saw the sketches, we met one night and I saw the sketches. I was like already like her concept and her style in drawing the sketches really stood out to me, and it really gave the Filipino vibe to it. I know Jen draws from an inspiration from Japanese eclectic Japanese styles, but I think she actually that kind of complemented it well with how she brought up the Filipino-ness of the book, if I may say. And so from then on, I just kind of like um, gave her ideas because like us as a group, we have more of a like Filipino culture background, I would say. So like if with each scene that she put to life, we kind of made sure we told like just this little tiny details that we wanna incorporate in each scene so that it looks more like it represents Filipino culture, Ilocano culture, and it reminds like the viewers, like back home in the Philippines how it was and the scenes. I just wanted to make sure that it kind of the aesthetics kind of help make the readers feel like they're actually looking back in time or looking at a scene that they can actually experience when they go to the Philippines, right? Or so that's I think she captured it really well.
I thought the images came out great, like what AJ was saying, how she captured like the whole essence of the story and the essence of each character.
That's interesting because we've almost had to sit on this project for quite some time, doing the drafts over and over again, not only in the text but as well as the images. Can anyone chime in as to what the process was like?
Oh yeah, I think it's frustrating, going through that process, but I think that's what it's made this journey even better because all of us are very passionate and we bring in so much talent and skills and love into the table. And every time we look at the copy, we see something that can be improved and something that will add value to the current state of the project. And I just like what AJ said earlier, the group has like these different perspectives, right? Like we have Dean's Ilocano perspective and expertise, and AJ's background and stories from his family that influenced the book, and Calvin, your expertise with design, and Jen's illustrations and talent. It's like a perfect mix of individuals. And so every time we looked at the draft, each of us brought a different perspective that eventually made the book what it is now, that we're at almost at the finish line.
Yeah, I definitely say that you bring up some really good points in terms of what everyone has to offer that eventually contributed to this project. And that actually brings me to my next point. AJ had actually brought it up in a previous comment. Uh, in terms of cultural identity and where we are at in society today, having the amount of available resources to us, regardless of language and whatever language and culture we have, do you think this book reflects a motivation to bring awareness to heritage, or even more so now? And if so, why is that? Anyone can chime in here.
Well, obviously, I think it does, because anyway, I wrote so I feel like Filipino culture has come a long way, and in being recognized. It does help. Like we're not there yet, I would say, but with this book, I feel like we can shed a light into different segments in Filipino population where it's not really mainstream. A lot of people, folks. I mean, a lot of different people here. I mean, with different backgrounds, know like Filipino, but what does that mean, right? So for this book, I'm so proud to write it in my own mother tongue in Ilocano, because Filipino doesn't just mean one thing anymore. It means many different things, and Ilocano being one of them. So um, I am shedding a light into a population that's a sizable population of the Filipino culture are Ilocanos here in Hawaii. So from then I draw that inspiration from the book, and so I mean in the book, so it it helps with making everyone aware that we are a diverse group. Yeah, like the umbrella term Filipino is a diverse group, and we are united also because of it, because we're diverse, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at the book from a like a classroom curricular perspective, because like the three of you all grew up in Hawaii, with exception to AJ, who moved here later. I mean, early, still in elementary school, and I grew up in the Philippines and moved here later after college. Like I feel like our exposure to our Ilocano culture and heritage was limited to the exposure that we had with our families, with our circles, right? And we were not really exposed to anything at school. Like all the stories that we read, all the people that we talk about at school, all the languages that we speak at school, like our heritage language was not represented there. And I feel like this is kind of opening the opportunity for younger kids who will read this book to see themselves in a book printed, and to read the language that they hear around them, when traditionally it does not have a space in the classroom. And I'm hoping that this will also bring kind of like more pride in speaking the language, because um, it is shameful for a lot of people. But even though, and I know not a lot of people are going to speak it, and that's good. That's still part of this complex bilingualism, multilingualism thing. But demonstrating it in a way, like writing a book or hearing it or speaking it, knowing someone who speaks it, that kind of brings a pride for a student in the classroom. And kind of, because what I've heard is a lot of my friends, like you folks, and a lot of students, they do not learn about their culture, their history, until later in high school, or when they get to college and they discover there's a program for it. Like I can learn about myself here, like, and starting as early as in elementary or kindergarten, it's gonna like, can you just imagine that change that can happen?
I think there's not much resources, Ilocano resources out there. It gives kids, especially younger kids, an opportunity to learn, especially if their parents don't want to teach their kids the language because they're in America, they want them to speak English and stuff like that. So this is an opportunity and a open door for the next generation of heritage language learners.
Yeah, what I think the group is doing here is such a wonderful thing to expand on the knowledge of cultural and intercultural relations, bilingualism, and the idea that we can all be living in unison in this world. And I think what everyone is doing here collectively and as individuals in participating in this book project, Pakara, is the ability to pave the way for other people to be inspired and to understand that Ilocano is just one of many, many, many different languages in the Philippines that is widely acceptable, that can be recognized by each and every one of us who are participating in learning and promoting this language and culture. So my last question kind of is relative to that. In terms of looking into the future, what do any of you hope to get out of this project? And are there any projects that you folks could potentially be looking forward to? Yeah, I'll give the floor to you on any of that.
I am involved in another publication. It's coming out hopefully at the end of the year. It's a collection of poems and letters from the youth of Hawaii. The first publication of this book was in 1990. It's the 30th anniversary of the publication of the book. So the group came together, collected poetry from the keiki of Hawaii high school kids and letters from an essay competition that we've been organizing. So I'm really, really fascinated how literature, writing in general, can bring together a group of people, like how Pakada brought us together, and just the power in the written word. And I guess that's where my passion lies.
AJ, do you think another book is actually in the cards for you?
Yeah, definitely. Regardless of um, how this book will be received, I definitely like for us to even have this opportunity, to publish a book and to go through the steps. I feel like I am more fearless now going into it. So I feel like, yeah, there will be iterations, maybe not about Pakada, but more stories, more stories from other facets of the culture, like specifically like Filipino customs, Ilocano customs, that I want to bring shine a light on, and then base it off of that. There are many stories to be told, and I feel like it's not just it shouldn't just come from me. So I feel like with our book, with what we earn or what we get from it, we should give back, and we should actually encourage other writers to write in their own mother tongue, whether it be Tagalog, other other languages of indigenous languages, heritage languages in Hawaii. Then maybe, yeah, like the future generation can be inspired to just write and write in their own mother tongue, and then in that way we can all preserve our languages.
What a great note to end on, AJ. Thank you so much for your insight. And thank you to everyone who participated in Kursada today. To Norman, to Dean, to Jenny Liz, who unfortunately couldn't be here. Thank you all so much for participating in this book. And I hope that we'll be able to see more of each and every one of us in our individual paths, looking into the future and beyond. I'm going to go ahead and link everyone's social media in the description box below, so you folks can go ahead and follow them, as well as Ilocano the Movement, the group that we are all a part of. That's, again, Ilocano the Movement. And of course, we'll continue to promote the book as the days and the months go along. Again, I wanted to thank you all for tuning into this first episode of Kursada. If you enjoyed this talk story and look forward to more videos like this, again, I want you to go ahead to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel as Calvin does. You'll be looking forward to more content like this, as well as other types of videos. Your support on this channel means a lot. And with that said, I will see you in the next video. Agyams and aloha.